chapter together, the whole notion of digital DNA and technology being so important that it almost got like a quarter of the time of the workshop. In a way, it seemed revolutionary back then. But now we see that in order for us to provide the value, to deliver the client services and some of this advanced planning that your clients are demanding, you can't do it without the technology. You really can't. And the technology allows you to be scalable, allows you to provide, consistent quality, allows you to monitor it better. And you just can't do it without the technology. So the whole idea behind the digital DNA is it really becomes almost the cornerstone of your practice and helps you to deliver those services so that you can attract those clients and protect your fees.
So I'm hearing you say it's not optional, in your opinion.
You know something, it's funny you say that because my husband has a technology background and he joined the firm about 6 years ago. And I've been doing this for 25 years. And the first 2.5 decades, the idea of bringing in my husband with a technology background, I'm like, that's not additive. Okay. And 6 years ago, he joined the firm. And let me tell you, his technology background has been super additive. I mean, I don't think we would have been able to grow the way we've grown or deliver the types of services that we deliver without somebody on the team who feels very comfortable in the technology world, so to speak.
Okay, so bringing up comfort level with technology, I wanted to ask you about where you see advisors kind of struggle or go wrong when it comes to tech, because we hear stories about advisors spending a lot of money on tools that don't get used. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think there's a few challenges, right? And we have those challenges too, right? Particularly before Rob showed up, right? But first of all, we're smaller firms. And so we don't have the infrastructure. We don't have call the tech department, right? They'll come and figure it out, or they'll come and get us up and running. And so I think that's a real issue for these smaller firms, is we just don't have the manpower, and we don't have that expertise. The average financial advisor age is 57 years old. So we did not grow up in this world. We don't feel comfortable in it, myself included, right? I mean, anybody that knows me knows that I'm not incredibly tech savvy, right? So I've had to force myself out of my comfort zone. And thankfully, I've surrounded myself with people who are very tech savvy. And together then we're able to, sort of get through this. So I'd say the first thing is just the design and composition of our firms, creates an inherent challenge because we don't have, an IT department. The leaders of the firms, average age of 57 years old. So, there's going to be some maybe resistance or lack of comfort there. And I think also there's a certain amount of hey, we got this far without the technology, so why do we really need it, right? I think there's a certain attachment to the status quo. And I think that is also hurting us.
Yeah, it's kind of like like when you get up to a plateau, when you become comfortable and you kind of stagnate there for a while, and you stop doing things differently, trying new things. Yeah, so that's the same way with the tech.
Right.
Yeah.
Like if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Right. Like I've got these great clients and I have 100 million in assets or 50 million, whatever your number is. Right. And nobody's leaving me, or only 1 or 2 people are leaving me. So why should I disrupt my world? So that's the challenge.
Yeah. So why should they? What would you say is the answer to that then? To somebody who says that?
You mean it wasn't a rhetorical question, right?
Yeah.
That was a real question, right? Yeah. Why should they? So I think there's some really good reasons why you should disrupt your world, right? So first of all, if you're interested in growing, you need to shake it up a bit. Okay. Yes, you've got to wherever you've gotten to with the tools you had in place, and good for you, right? Good for you that you made it this far. Good for us, we made it this far. But if you want to get to that next level, you're going to need to leverage the technology because it allows you to be scalable and allows you to deliver these services, in a scalable way. Okay. And less errors, right? So I think if you're interested in growing, that's one reason. If you're like, hey, I'm not so interested in growing, right? I have my 100 million and I'm good. Well, then the other thing you need to think about is even succession planning, right? If you're interested in some type of exit strategy and selling your firm and getting top dollar for it, if you are still operating in the Stone Ages, that's going to be used against you in your valuation. So there is something to be said by continuing to follow best practices and stay best of breed, even if you're like, quote, on your way out or, not so focused in growth, because I think most people should at least be focused on getting a good valuation for their firm, or when you're handing it off to somebody, handing it off in the best way possible, not with technology from 20 years ago or outdated technology or no technology, right? So just like on a lot of levels, a lot of very practical levels, if you're growing, if you're looking for an exit strategy or you're trying to transfer it to someone, at the end of the day, we have cars. We don't ride around in horse and buggy anymore. You could still use a horse and buggy to get from point A to point B, but we know a car is a more effective tool. So why aren't we using the car? It's really the same concept.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's move on to look at client management specifically.
And let me just, can I mention one thing? So that was sort of more broadly speaking and sort of like more of a metaphor, but also, and we talk about this in the workshop, which starts on Tuesday, is some of the services that we want to provide, you need the technology to provide these services, okay? You cannot do it with Excel or a pencil and paper. And so when we teach the workshop, I'll do polling and I'll say, oh, how many of you are using a social security tool? How many of you are using, financial planning technology? And I'm still amazed in 2023 that there are people that say no, like I don't have technology for financial planning. I don't have technology for social security analysis. And I'm like, how can you not? Like, how can you have any confidence in your recommendations when you're doing it back of the envelope or you're trying to use Excel? And yet there are people still out there that are doing it. And so my point here then is we're still charging that 1% fee. We still want to service our clients well. We cannot do some of these services capably, accurately, scalability wise, without the software. And that's social security analysis, that's financial planning, that's tax planning, tax return review. Like you need technology to do these things. I mean, that's just but that's now not the metaphor, not the concept, right? That's getting down, practically speaking, day in and day out, why you need that technology.
Yeah. And obviously it's much more faster. You're saying it's not just more quicker and more efficient. You can't do it without these tools.
I personally don't feel comfortable without the tools. I mean, there is a time where Social Security for a married couple, there were 8,000 different iterations of filing strategies. 8,000. Okay, how are you supposed to model that on Excel? You just can't, and it's constantly changing. The financial planning software, the tax return review. So 4 or 5 years ago, I used to do manual tax return reviews, and it was literally like taking my nails down a chalkboard. The AICPA has a 15-page booklet that is basically single-spaced of all the things that you need to look for on a tax return. It's literally like 15 pages long. So here I am, right? I'm a CPA, I'm a retired attorney, right? I used to prepare tax returns for a living, and I'm going through these tax returns manually. How many of those do you think I could do, right? And I certainly didn't trust farming that out to somebody who wasn't a CPA and didn't have my background, right? I mean, that's something that I had to be the one doing it. And this manual process, and by the way, even with the AICPA checklist, and by the way, Horse's Mouth also had done a checklist that I helped to draft, and I think it's still out there. Even with the checklist and the tools, I still didn't feel comfortable that I wasn't going to miss anything. So that's an example.
Yeah. And these tools are getting better too. Also, so you're only going to increase your productivity and ease of use and such.
It's actually wild how much improvement there are in the tools, even just quarter over quarter. It is like the Wild West as far as the dynamism of these tools. And so that's really exciting to be part of it. And the other thing is the pricing. Is these tools, generally speaking, and it's sort of interesting, the pricing, right? Like, how you'll go to a store and you'll say, oh, like, I want to buy balloons or something. And like, basically all the balloons are the same price. And you're like, yeah, these guys must have all called each other, right? Is the software by and large, is about $1,000 to $1,500 a month. Okay. Now, some of the software is more expensive, like Money Guide Pro or eMoney. Well, eMoney is a little more expensive. It's like $300 or $400 a month. I think Money Guide Pro is about $1,000 to $2,000. But it's interesting, like there's this price point around $1,000 to $2,000 that you see a lot of the software slide into. And I'm like, for $1,000 or $1,500, that I don't have to manually review a tax return anymore. Literally, the software pays for itself after one tax return review. As far as I'm concerned, just one. When you factor in my time and factor in the fact that I can sleep well at night because I know it's accurate, like one tax return review, and I'm like, well, it's already paid for itself.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So now let's turn to client management, which is one of the key areas that you talk about when it comes to tech in your workshop chapter. Specifically with client management, how does increasing your tech repertoire, what does it do for you?
With client management.
Yeah.
So is that like organizing my clients or providing services to them?
I guess it's kind of all of the above.
So, yeah, you're like, Debbie, it's your workshop, right? You should be able to answer that question, right? Yeah, I mean, so the tech has been really a game changer for us. So we talk a lot about it on the last day of the workshop, but what it's allowed us to do is to branch into tax planning in a really meaningful way, right? So first it was like planning, and that was like the big thing, right? And now the next, right, is this tax planning and this sort of distribution planning. And so I was actually on a webinar yesterday, and it was interesting the way they put it. And I think I'm going to write an article about it. So we all are using, or most of us are using the software now, eMoney or Money Guide Pro, and that's the accumulation planning software. That's like, oh, you're going to put away, $10 a year, and at age 65, you're going to have, $500, and you'll be able to retire on that, right? That's your accumulation planning software. And now there's software out that helps us with decumulation planning, right? The distribution planning. And you're thinking about it, you're like, my gosh, yeah, right? And so, of course, these folks that have accumulated these assets, and now we have software that helps to coach them, right? How to do that, how much to put away, all that, right? But now we need software to help them draw down those assets in a tax efficient way. And so what we've done then is we've created, essentially our niche, which is tax planning. And it's helped us to differentiate ourselves. It's helped us to bring in clients. It's helped us to protect our fees and actually close much larger business, because people that are concerned about taxes are usually those larger clients, and they want tax planning.
Yeah, maybe you could talk a little bit about the deliverables, because that the things that you can, like the reports and things that you can print out with these softwares, those are pretty huge, right? In terms of like clients really like those.
Yeah, and that's been also amazing, is some of the client-facing reports that we use in our prospect meetings. And then, of course, we use once they become clients. And here's the thing, the software allows you to get into areas that are so technical and so additive for these clients that they'll never leave you, right? Because the work you're doing is so so connected to the client and their needs, that they don't see you as so easily replaceable anymore, right? So in a way, the software helps you to also personalize the client experience. So it's sort of ironic, right? It's almost like they talk about Amazon, right? Is Amazon operates on scale, but then it's also personalized. And they're saying, people want both, right? They want the efficiency, but they also want that personal experience. In a way, the technology is allowing us to do the same thing. It's allowing us to deliver essentially personalized, non-scalable or traditionally non-scalable services, but they're allowing us to do it more on scale.
Interesting.
What do you think about that?
Yeah. I was like, it's pretty deep. I had to ponder that one a little bit. Let's see. So I know you cover a little bit social media, right? And how you use tech there as well. You want to talk a little bit about that? Sure.
I mean, so we use Hootsuite to help schedule some of our social media posts, so we don't have to get up on Saturday morning to do those posts. We'll use Constant Contact to do our newsletters. We do weekly newsletters, and so the technology has been helpful, in those areas as well.
Yeah, that's I know a lot of the pain points advisors have with social media. One is that it takes a lot of time, and so a lot of these tools can help mitigate that. As you mentioned, pre-scheduling everything to go off with you not being in the room pressing the button. Um, okay, great. Well, I think that's going to do it then for today. Unless you had anything you wanted to mention, Debbie, before we hop off.
Yeah. So I just wanted to mention, right, is the technology, and it is a little weird for me to be plugging this because, again, technology is like not my forte, but it has become such a critical part of the practice, particularly if you're trying to grow, particularly if you're trying to deliver these specialized services and protect that fee and attract those larger clients. And so, so much so that, like I said, there's probably the last quarter of the workshop talks about all the different technology tools to help in your practice for scalability, for efficiency, for the quality of the work, and to deliver these specialized services. And it's actually pretty cool, right? It's really exciting to see sort of the evolution of the industry in this way. So I'd encourage you, the workshop is 1 day a week for the next 4 weeks, basically, right? I don't know if we have the dates or anything.
Yep, I do have the date. So February 28th, so next Tuesday is when it starts, and then March 7th, 17th, and 21st.
Okay. And it goes for about 3 hours, and we have lots of participation because I don't have all the answers. So it's very much a dialogue. And we have a bunch of folks signed up, but it's not too big that newer folks that sign up, still can't participate and, have a great experience, with their peers as well. So most folks that sign up for the workshop have a great experience.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think anecdotally, we get people raving about this workshop more than any of our other workshops. And one of the reasons why we split it up too, a little bit is so that members of your team who are kind of relevant to a particular area of your practice can attend that session with you, right?
Yeah, we had so much content, right? So the classroom guide is like 1,000 pages. I mean, it's literally like this thick. And so traditionally, I mean, first it was in person, right? But then when we went virtual, we would do it literally Monday through Thursday for 3 hours each day. And it was just like, right? And I thought it was too much, right? It was hard for the participants. And even for me to like get up there like 4 days in a row, just like 3 hours, just sort of like pouring my heart out, right? And so now it's once a week, and about the topics in advance because we're following a certain agenda. And so we encourage you, for the day that we talk about client experience or the day we talk about marketing, that you have members of your team on, or that last session is financial planning and technology because they go really hand in hand. So that day you'd want your financial planning assistant on, or maybe your tech champion in your office. And so it's just a better pace, right? Once a week over 4 weeks doesn't feel so overwhelming.
Yeah. And like I said, people rave about this one. It's really great stuff. And yeah, you can go to horsesmouth.com/BBBW23 to learn out more and sign up. We'd love to have you in the workshop. And that's going to do it for today. Hopefully we'll see you next week in the workshop.
Thanks, folks. Have a great weekend. Stay safe.